role. First thing I need to do is give it a name, so I'm going to create an e-commerce manager role. And this role resources tab is where we tell the role what permissions it can perform. Okay, so here we see a list of permissions, and before I go over this, I'm just going to go ahead and give my e-commerce manager role all of these. And then I'm going to come back and create another role, and we can look at the individual permissions. But let's go ahead and get this e-commerce manager created. We'll give him access to everything and save the role. Alright, e-commerce manager. Now I want to assign John to his e-commerce manager role. I can do that by just simply clicking the role here. And now you can see I have this new tab, Role Users, and I have a grid. And so to add John to that role, just going to tick his name. Make sure all my fields are filled out. And save the role. There we go. Now John should be a part of the e-commerce manager role. And if I double check by going back to System and All Users to take a look at John's user record, you can see his role is e-commerce manager. And incidentally, I could have assigned his role here from his user screen, but I think if you have several users that need to belong to a single role, it's better to do it from the user role itself, as I've done. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create another role in user, and I'll show you the permissions that are available. Okay, so quickly, we'll go back to permissions all users. Add a new user. And we'll add John's wife, Jane. She's in the same place John is, so her interface locale stays the way it is, her account is active, and then my administrator password. Okay, now I'm going to leave user role as it is for now. Save the user again. And now I'll create her new role. Let's say for Jane, we're going to make her a catalog manager. So System Permissions User Roles. Add a new role. And let's take a look at the role resources here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just collapse all these menus so we can get a better view of what we're dealing with. Okay. So now the thing you'll notice here is that from dashboard down we have dashboard, sales, products, we'll skip cards, customers, marketing, my account, content, reports, stores, and system. And for the most part, these checkboxes correspond to these menus here: dashboard, sales, products, here's customers, marketing, we'll skip my account, content, reports, stores, and system. Okay, so each of these groupings deals with the features contained in these menus. So Jane's the catalog manager. So I'm going to look at the products group here. And within catalog and categories, we just have the menus here, catalog and categories. Okay. And so I want her to have all the actions associated with managing the catalog. So I'll just click products and all of those get assigned. And maybe I want her to be able to run some product-based reporting. So we'll get in here and look at some of the reports. And here's some product-specific reports. And I'll give her the ability to view those and also to refresh report statistics. That way she can generate them on her own. Now I'll save her role. Okay, and then the last thing I need to do is make sure that Jane is assigned to her role. So we'll go into the Catalog Manager role, the Role Users tab, tick Jane, and save the role. Okay, so now Jane has been saved, and keep in mind you can only have one user per role, so a user can only have a single role at one time. So John would not be able to belong to both the e-commerce manager role and the catalog manager role. Alright, so she's been assigned. So let's go ahead and log out as the admin. And I'll log back in as Jane. And here we can see some differences. Loading up the products grid. But over here on this sidebar, you'll notice we have products, catalog, and categories. So she retains all of those permissions. And then in reports, we just have the products reports and the ability to refresh statistics. Okay. So she has all the permissions we expect her to have and none of the permissions we don't. Alright, and that's creating user roles and assigning permissions.
How would you define the purpose of a user role? Type your response in the text field below, then click the Submit button to see our answer. This section discusses role scopes, which is a feature exclusive to Magento Enterprise Edition. In this section, we'll discuss role scopes, which is a feature exclusive to Enterprise Edition. We'll discuss what role scope is and how to assign scope to a role. And then you'll have hands-on practice in creating a user with a defined scope, doing it yourself while reviewing the creation of websites, users, and roles, which you learned about earlier in this unit. Scopes let you define which parts of your Magento 2 installation will be affected by a given configuration setting. The scope of a setting can be store view, website, or global. The ability to assign scopes to roles is an exclusive feature of Magento 2 Enterprise Edition, not available in Community Edition. Scopes let you define which parts of your Magento 2 installation will be affected by a given configuration setting. The scope of a setting can be store view, website, or global. The ability to assign scopes to roles is an exclusive feature of Magento 2 Enterprise Edition, not available in Community Edition. So why would you want to assign a scope to a role, and what would it help you to do? The role scope defines which websites a user can administer, and that can prevent problems. For example, suppose your company wants to sell two completely separate sets of products on different websites, hosted on a single Magento instance. You might, for example, want to have an EU website that is run separately from your US site and staffed by a different team of product managers. You do not want the product managers on the EU site to be able to edit the completely different products on the US site and vice versa. In a case like this, you can use role scopes to separate the access privileges of the two teams. Restricting a role's scope can prevent problems. For example, suppose a customer service representative, CSR, from the US team didn't check which site he was on and deleted a customer with a common name, like John Smith, from the EU site, when he meant to delete a completely different John Smith who used the US site. Configuring that CSR's role scope to apply only to the US site would have prevented this problem, and others like it. Using correctly configured role scopes here would mean that the CSR is not able to select the wrong website. In this example, John Doe, a customer sales representative, has access only to the store view called New Store View. He can't see or select the default main website or any other store view because the administrator limited the scope of his role to that store view. He is also limited to seeing only the Sales, Customers, Marketing, and Reports sections of the New Store View admin, since those are the only sections for which his role has access permissions. With Enterprise Edition, once you have created and named a role, you can assign the role a scope. In this example, we have created a CSR role, and we want to limit its scope to one of the two websites on our Magento instance. To start, we click Role Resources and assign the role its scope or scopes. We start by setting the Role Scopes dropdown to Custom, and then Magento displays a menu of the available scopes. Then we check the boxes of the websites and store views that we want this role to be able to access. In this example, the website that our CSR administers is one of two websites on one instance of Magento. Next, we set the Resources drop-down to Custom and check the resources that we want this role to be able to use. Then we click Save Role. Click Next to see Hillary's demo on role scopes.
Now we're going to look at role scopes. Role scopes is an enterprise-only feature which allows you to restrict a role to specific resources and specific websites. This site has three websites: the main website, but it also has an EU website and a US website. And we're going to create a customer services representative for the US website who will not be able to access the EU website. So to do that, we go to the admin interface and choose System and User Roles. Go to Add New Role and we type in the role name. So there we are, we've got US Customer Services Rep. Then we go to Role Resources, and here you can see you've got role scopes. All will give this user or this role access to every website. So we're going to choose Custom, which brings up a dialog box, and we're going to say that they're only able to work on the US website. And here we have role resources that could be set to all, which will give them administrator access and administrator privileges over the US website. But this is a customer services representative, so we want them to have the ability to see the dashboard. We want them to be able to manage sales. We want them to be able to manage customers, carts, perhaps content and reports. Then we click Save Role and type in the password, and this is the administrator's password, and save the role. So there we are. Now you've set up a new user role. Let's look at that again. So let's this time set up a customer services representative for the EU website. So if we click again, Add New Role, type in EU. EU Customer Services Rep, go to Role Resources, and this time we'll turn off the ability to use the US website. And again, we can set those parts of the system we want the representative to be able to see. Having done that, we go back to save role, and again we have to enter our password and save the role. So there we are, we have two roles, one able to administer the US website and another one able to administer the EU site.
Exercise Role Scopes. Follow the steps in this exercise and then check your results against the answer slides that follow. If you perform the exercise correctly, your new store should appear in the list of stores at Stores, Settings, All Stores. Your CSR's role scopes permissions should look like this. And when you look at your list of roles, the CSR role should have an appropriate restriction in the Allowed Scopes column. You should now know, in Magento 2 Enterprise Edition, role scopes allow you to restrict your users' access to different parts of your Magento 2 Enterprise Edition store. You should now know how to, in the Community Edition, create a new user role and assign role resources. Create a new user and assign a role to that user, and in the Enterprise Edition, create a user role with a defined role scope. In this module, we'll look at some general business information you'll need to fill out before taking your site live. It's a good idea to ask your system integrator for a pre-launch checklist before you go live. This list should include all settings you'll need to have filled out beforehand so that nothing is forgotten. When setting up your store for business, one of the first things you'll need to do is to configure the options shown in the next section of this course, as listed on this slide. Locale fields control your business's time zone and also determine the language and other localized settings that customers will see. You'll make changes here when you're ready to expand to new markets and open new websites in different countries. The store information fields are stored in the database and can be displayed in CMS content and transactional emails. When you update these fields in the admin, each location which references them is automatically updated as well. This means you don't need to manually enter the information multiple times. In the base URLs or base URLs secure, you tell Magento the location and values for your base URL, base link URL, and within that location, the folders where you are storing your store skin, media, and any JavaScript files that affect site behavior. Note, the benefit of having the URLs at the store view level is that you can have different URLs and themes at the store view and website levels. For example, you can have luma.com for a US-based audience and luma.co.uk for a UK-based audience. Each of these can have a different look and feel. By default, all pages in Magento have a title. CMS pages have a required title field you'll fill out. Category landing pages and product pages use the category paths and product titles as their page titles, respectively. If you want to use any other title text, for example, if you want your brand name to appear before any other title text, you can use the prefix field here. Header settings are theme dependent and therefore subject to customization, which may affect how the content is displayed on your store's pages. Here in the footer panel, you'll type your copyright information to protect your site content. Natively, this notice will be visible at the bottom of all pages of your store. However, this setting is theme dependent, which means that if your theme has been customized, you may not see the copyright as you expect. Note, if you want to incorporate a copyright date, which automatically updates each year, you'll need to have your system integrator or technical team customize your page template to allow for this. This is because the copyright field does not evaluate PHP functions. Store communication email logos appear on all transactional emails which are sent to your customers. Make sure you remember to include these before going live to the public. These store email addresses are required for sending store emails. Pre-configured email identities are general contact, sales representative, and customer support. You can define 2 custom email identities to represent other functions or departments. The invoice, shipment, or packing slip, and credit memo logos appear on PDF printouts of those records which are provided to customers. As with the store communication email logos, make sure you remember to include these before going live to the public. The base currency is the primary currency that you use for online transactions. The default display currency is the currency that you use to display pricing in your store. Allowed currencies are currencies in which you allow product prices to be displayed to customers, as well as accepted as payment in your store. When selecting your allowed currencies, make sure to include your primary currency. If multiple currencies are needed in your store, this is where you configure the store settings to accept them. If you want to select multiple values in the allowed currencies multi-select, use Control-click for your PC or Command-click for your Mac. Simply clicking on one choice will clear any others which may have already been selected. To use display currencies, Magento 2 needs to know the exchange rate for each currency you want to use. To configure this, use the Currency Rates page shown here. You'll see your base currency on the left with your configured display currencies from left to right shown in columns. Magento 2 uses a web service to keep currency exchange rates up to date. To refresh the rates, click the Import button and the available rates will be updated. If any rate is not updated, you'll need to track that currency's rate manually. The currency exchange web service can be configured to update automatically at a specific time in the Scheduled Import Settings section of the Currency Setup page. Click Next to see Steve demonstrate setting up currency and currency rates.
In a previous demonstration, we used the store view switcher to create different product descriptions for different customer bases. And now we need to set up different currencies for those customer bases. So let's take a look at what we're working with here. On the front end in this store view switcher, we have 4 store views: an English store view for US-based customers, one for customers in the UK, French customers here, and Estonian customers, and each one of these store views is going to require its own currency. So we're going to do the US dollar, the pound sterling, the euro, and for sake of demonstration, only the Estonian kroon. That's actually a deprecated currency